I'm the managing director at Sea-Tac Airport. When here in front of a security checkpoint at this time of the year, we typically talk about the upcoming busy holiday travel season. Today we are here a full year in advance offering a heads up to travelers about the new requirements coming for Real ID in October 1st, 2020. Our message today, the more prepared you are, the better. Our priority is the customer experience of travelers here at Sea-Tac Airport, but this is also about airports throughout the state of Washington and the U.S. The Port of Seattle Commission places a high priority on promoting equity and inclusion, and we will work with our partners to implement the federal law in keeping with those values. I want to first thank our partners in this effort, the Washington Department of Licensing and the TSA, Transportation Security Administration. The Department of Licensing is doing a tremendous job of getting the word out to the changes about the changes coming for Real ID with advertisements and billboard. We are working together to post signage at every checkpoint. I also want to thank our partners with the TSA. They work very hard with us throughout the year and especially this summer to keep as many checkpoint lanes open as possible, which means shorter wait times for our travelers. Our work together will continue over the next year as we educate the public about Real ID and then when it takes effect next October. A survey commissioned by the U.S. Travel Association shows that nearly 3/4 of Americans are unprepared for Real ID. Millions of passengers across the U.S. could be prevented access through airport security checkpoints if they do not have Real ID compliant driver's license or another approved form of ID by October 1st, 2020. The good news is that we have a year for passengers to prepare for Real ID. Our team at Sea-Tac works hard to create positive and efficient travel experiences. Specific to Real ID, we are sharing information with travelers on our website, social media, as well as the security checkpoints and throughout the terminal with signage, advertisement, hands out, and verbal notices for passengers. We are also working closely with our aviation industry partners as Real ID will affect access to airport security checkpoints nationally. We want to ensure the customer experience is the best it can be at Sea-Tac Airport, which means our passengers have the right federal documents to expedite their movement through our facilities. As you will hear today, getting ready for Real ID will be a key component of that for 2020. Now I'd like to introduce Deputy Federal Security Director for Washington Transportation Security Administration, Chris Baden.
Thank you, Lance, and thank you, Theresa. I just wanted to also acknowledge our partnership that we have with the Department of Licensing as well as the Port of Seattle. Done a tremendous job helping us get through the summer this year with additional staffing, et cetera. The U.S. Congress passed the Real ID Act in 2005, enacting recommendations from the 9/11 Commission. It is intended to improve the reliability and accuracy of driver's licenses and identification cards while inhibiting the ability of terrorists and others to evade detection while using fraudulent identification. The Act established minimum security standards for state driver's licenses and identification cards. The Act further prohibited federal agencies, including TSA, from accepting state-issued driver's license or identification cards that do not meet minimum standards. Beginning on the 1st of October in 2020, all travelers will need a Real ID compliant form of ID to enter the TSA security checkpoint. TSA officers who conduct travel document checking functions at the entrance of the security checkpoint can only accept identification that is Real ID compliant. Stated another way, travelers who do not have a Real ID form of identification starting on October 1st, 2020 will not be allowed into the security checkpoint. However, the majority of people who travel use a state-issued driver's license or identification card as their form of ID, so enforcement of Real ID will have an impact on folks. To determine if a Washington driver's license is Real ID compliant, look for the words enhanced driver's license across the top of the license. The presence of these words will indicate that the driver's license is Real ID compliant and will be accepted by TSA officers in the security checkpoint in October 2020. I want to point out, though, and make it clear that TSA accepts more than driver's license as a form of photo identification. So some travelers may already have an acceptable alternate form of ID. Examples include the U.S. passport card, Department of Homeland Security trusted traveler cards such as Global Entry, Nexus, or Sentry cards, a federal PIV card, active duty military ID card, including IDs issued to dependents, tribal identification cards, and transportation worker identification credentials. TSA maintains a list of all acceptable forms of ID compliant identification on our website, www.tsa.gov, if you have a question. Real ID enforcement deadline will sneak up on all of us. That's why signs are currently posted at airports nationwide reminding the public that the Real ID compliant licenses or other forms of acceptable identification will be mandatory for air travel beginning October 1st, 2020. TSA encourages state residents to take a few minutes to see what photo identification you plan to use for travel when federal enforcement of Real ID begins 1 year from today. Now is the best time to act. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thanks for the partnership, especially this summer. We had record-breaking numbers, and the TSA really did a tremendous job keeping those lines moving. Now, I'm happy to introduce the Director of the Washington Department of Licensing, Theresa Bernstein. Theresa?
Thank you so much. So again, 1 year from now, the state's standard driver license and ID card will not be enough to get you on an airplane. So we really want Washington to be prepared. So please take the time now to identify what identity document is best for you. As the previous speakers have spoken, there are many options: a U.S. passport, a U.S. passport card, a foreign passport, military ID, tribal ID. One option for Washington State is the enhanced driver's license or ID card. And if you want that option, I encourage you to come in now. You don't have to wait until your current license or ID card expires. There's a really good reason to come in now. We have about 11-minute average statewide wait times for our driver licensing offices, but we do anticipate that's going to increase over the over the summer and the fall. You don't want to spend your summer in line with us. We want to give you great service. So please think about acting now, even if you're renewing your standard driver license or ID card. So again, please know your options. We also have a website, id2020wa.com, to find out if you're ready. So beat the rush and be prepared.
Thank you very much, Theresa, and thanks for your partnership in trying to get this information out early enough to our passengers so we don't have unpleasant surprises come 2020 next year, October 1st, 2020 next year. At this point, we are open to any questions that you may have. We're also going to be available for one-on-one interviews. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer.
Certainly. So in order to get an enhanced driver's license or ID card, what you're going to need to bring into our office is proof of your identity, your Washington residency, your U.S. citizenship, and your Social Security number. There are we do need to see original documents. That's not necessarily your card. There's a whole list of documents on our website that are acceptable, but they do need to be original or certified copies. Yeah. Sure. The cost is $78 as opposed to $54 for the for the regular driver's license. So $78 for 6 years. The fees are set by the legislature. I think one good reason is it takes more time, more staff time, and more computer time to issue an enhanced document than a regular document. There are no current plans right now. The plan is to have the standard driver's license that any Washington resident can get, or ID card. And then the enhanced document is the state-issued document that is Real ID compliant. That's correct. We just need to know that our domestic flying habits will change after October 1st, 2020, right?
That's really the reason we're having these types of meetings right now, is to make sure that we get the word out early. We generally plan our staffing based on passenger demand, understanding that there could be some folks who don't get the ID on time. But again, we want to emphasize that there are other forms of compliant ID that people can still travel with.
If I could just add to that, we of course will work very closely with the TSA and all the other entities. If we need to add additional staff during that period of time to ensure that our customers have a pleasant experience, we will do that if required. All right. All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate it. Thank you.